Welcome back to Primary Source China Investment. This week we're on show P6. And as you're probably aware, Pungo and I have been talking a lot about trade recently. And it's hard to keep up because, look, just this month, Chinese exports grew at 1.5% after falling 7.5% in March. And then Chinese imports jumped 8.5% after a decline of 1.9% in March. So things are definitely changing. And the theme has been trade finds a way, and we continue to see evidence of this. And this week, we're looking at Israel. Israel is about the same population and GDP size as Belgium. And it's no secret that China is trying to maintain some sense of neutrality in the war brought on by Hamas, as they are in Russia. But it's complicated. China has diplomatic relationships with the PLO since 1965, officially recognized Palestine in 1988, and the PLO's had an embassy in China since 1974. In 2023, Mahmoud Abbas visited Beijing. Netanyahu hasn't been to China since 2017, although shortly after the Abbas visit, Netanyahu announced that he had been invited for a visit. Xi Jinping has called for a two-state solution. He's also called for the capital of Palestine to be in East Jerusalem. Despite these long-standing relationship and positions, Beijing refrains from confronting Israel directly because what are the two magic words? Trade and investment. Many of the investments are related to Belt and Road, including data centers with energy and telecom providers, such as the agreement between Huawei and an Israeli company called Zing Energy. There's been a $300 million agreement between Israel, Color Chip, and a number of Chinese companies. So there's a lot of activity going on. And the final one, which is probably most critical, has gotten a lot of press, is this port in Haifa. China's giant shipping company, COSCO, stopped shipping to the Chinese-controlled port in Haifa in January in a move that seems motivated to penalize Israel. How does China trade with Israel? There's actually three ways. And it's emerging that Israel's only real practical trading route with China is the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route, which depends on places like Kazakhstan and Azerbaijan, both places where Israel has good relationships. The northern route goes through Russia, so that's pretty much off limits at this point. And the southern relies on Iran. And Iran has called for death to Israel as well as America. So those are no-go. But the Trans-Caspian International Transport Route is firmly a Belt and Road partner. It's hardly 10 years old, this transportation route, but it's already seen increases in volume, staggering numbers, 86% in 2023, 65% in 2022, and they're calling for a 50% increase just in trade volume for 2024. All good news, but China's trade to Israel is in fact decreasing. In 2023, imports from China decreased 15%, and exports to China decreased 26%. Israel now exports more to Ireland than China. And it seems, and Poe, I'll put this out as a hypothesis, whatever this concept is of global South, it seems that China is targeting the global South and sort of moving away from the global West, if you will. What's your thoughts?
I think, firstly, from the China perspective, so China grows from the international trade and also get good benefits from the international trade, which is the benefit not just for China and also for all the countries that have the trade relationship with China. Right now, China has, with Israel, have the trade volume probably 23.4 billion US dollars, which grows pretty quickly. I think a little bit is worth to take a look at the history between China and Israel. So Israel was set up in 1948, and China, a Republic of China, People's Republic of China was set up in 1949. So in 1950s, Israel is the first country in Middle East recognized China. So that is, but after that, due to the international conflict, the international relationships, Israel and China didn't build the diplomatic relationship. until the 1992. So that is a long time, and also reflect how complicated for the international political relationship impacted both countries' business.
Mm.
So that's totally unnecessary to wait for such a long time to start the trade. And after 1992, we can say that both trade and two countries' relationship grows quickly, and also you will see the current the both countries get a huge benefit from those kind of relationship.
Yeah, you see, even this past year, 22% of all new cars sold in Israel are Chinese. Despite that, though, overall trade for Israel as a country was down in 2023, but it was down more for China specifically. And this is going to this point of like this Western countries and global South. And here's some data. The National Security Studies at Tel Aviv University put it very succinctly. Chinese China's exports to Western countries like Japan, the EU, and the US decreased by 10%. China's exports to the UAE, India, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Russia grew by 46%. When we talk about shifting trade, this is what we're talking about. So exactly what you're saying in terms of trade was growing very quickly between China and Israel. 2023 seemed to drop off. It seemed to drop off a lot, even though almost a quarter of all Israeli cars are Chinese made. And now we're starting to see more headlines that Israel is looking more like the EU in terms of Chinese EVs. Like, these headlines are out there. Oh, are Chinese EVs spying on, Israelis? And you have a number of different diplomats that are really digging their heels in on the side of the Palestinian people and Gaza, even, supporting Hamas. So all of these things are going to go into the trade calculus. And there's, a number of politicians in Israel that are, much more hardline than Netanyahu, and they're going to try to affect change on the trade side.
Yeah, and Israel is like the strong industrial countries, even like the pretty small size. And
Yeah.
a lot of the new technology, they can find the huge market in China. And also the complicated US and China relationship as well as Israel and the Arabic relationship will impact those trade. So I believe actually it's impacted the whole world. So I believe after the conflict get calm down, and hopefully the trade will back to normal and back to the original business perspective rather than based on the political decisions.
I hear that, but I can't imagine things are going back. Before we got on air, we were talking about flights. I don't think flights are are coming back anytime soon. So with that, we're going to leave it with show P6. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.